I used to think that as long as I moved every day, my heart would stay strong. Until one workout sent me straight to the ER that very night. It was a quiet Tuesday morning, the kind where the mist still hangs low over the Asheville hills. I was out at the park with a few old buddies from the neighborhood, doing one of those high-intensity workouts we found online. They promised it would burn fat, boost heart health, and make us feel younger in just 15 minutes. At first I felt fine. My heart was pounding. Sweat was running down my back. For a moment it felt like I was keeping up with time. But around the 7-minute mark something changed. My vision blurred. My chest tightened. My hands turned cold. I kept smiling so no one would worry, but inside I was scared. Really scared. That was the first time I felt like death wasn't years away. It was just one wrong step away. They rushed me to the hospital. The doctor didn't say much. He just looked at me and said, "You're not 30 anymore, but you're forcing your heart to act like it is." That line stuck with me. Not every workout is made for a heart that's already beaten more than 27 million times. Too many people my age believe that pushing harder means living longer. But the truth is, some of the exercises we rely on to keep us strong are slowly wearing us down. We don't do them out of laziness. We do them out of trust. Trust in routines that were built for younger bodies. Trust in the idea that effort equals health. But at some point, that belief becomes a risk we can't afford to take. This video isn't here to scare you. It's here to protect you. I'm sharing this like I would if we were sitting on a porch together, because I've lived through it. And I don't want you or anyone else to go through what I did. I'll walk you through 5 exercises that seniors like us often do without realizing the harm they're causing. I'll also share safer and gentler alternatives that support the heart without straining it. And if you stay with me until the end, you won't just know what to avoid. You'll know what to do instead every single day to give your heart what it really needs. I'm not saying this to lecture you. I'm saying this because I've been there, and I hope you never have to be. That rapid breathing after each jump, I used to think it meant I was getting stronger. Turns out, it was my heart screaming for help. Back then, I didn't know what high-intensity interval training really did to a body like mine. Short bursts of intense movement followed by quick rests sounded efficient. But according to the Mayo Clinic and several heart specialists I later spoke with, these sudden spikes in effort can cause sharp rises in blood pressure and throw off your heart's rhythm. For someone over 60 like me, it's like asking an old engine to keep hitting full speed without checking if it still has enough oil. Sooner or later something gives out. I remember that morning more clearly than most. We were at the park, and the instructor, a young man full of energy, led us through a series of jump squats and fast steps. At first I felt proud, keeping up, sweating like I had turned back the clock. But somewhere around the 4th round things started to blur. My chest tightened. My vision dimmed around the edges, and my heart started to beat like it was trying to escape my chest. I told myself it was nothing, that I just needed to catch my breath, that a little pain meant progress. Looking back now, I can see how many of us fall into that same trap. We believe the harder we push, the better we're doing. We've heard it our whole lives. No pain, no gain. But that phrase doesn't apply the same way when your arteries are stiffer, your heart less forgiving, and your body more vulnerable to sudden strain. And that's when the question hit me in a way it never had before. Was I really working out to stay alive, or was I slowly pushing myself into danger just to prove something that no longer mattered? Since then, I've taken a different path. I start my days with slow walks. I practice Tai Chi with a few neighbors under the oak trees near the church. Some mornings I take my bike out and coast along the edge of town, just enough to feel the wind without forcing my heart to fight. No more chasing the burn. No more chasing who I used to be. If you've ever felt like more effort must mean better health, maybe it's time to rethink that. Your heart doesn't need you to fight it. It needs you to understand it, to move with care, not with urgency, to choose presence over performance, and to remember that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is slow down. I never thought a simple core exercise could make my heart work so hard just to keep up. But it did. It happened on a quiet afternoon at the gym. I wasn't trying to break records or show off. I was just doing what I thought was right for a man in his 70s. I grabbed a pair of 20-pound dumbbells and started my set of overhead presses. Between those, I added a few rounds of crunches on the mat. It all seemed harmless, controlled, familiar. But somewhere in the middle of that second set, my chest began to tighten. Not the kind of tightness that comes from muscle burn, but something deeper. A pressure that rose up behind my ribs and made it hard to catch a full breath. My head spun a little. I sat up slowly and waited. It passed. But that moment stuck with me. Later I learned what was happening. When we do exercises like crunches or lift heavy weights, especially without breathing properly, it increases pressure in the abdomen and chest. That pressure doesn't just stay there. It pushes against the heart, forcing it to work harder with each rep. According to the American Heart Association and other cardiac experts, this surge in pressure can trigger spikes in blood pressure and disturb heart rhythm, particularly in older adults. And we rarely notice until it's too late. I used to think that the more I pushed, the more I'd keep myself sharp. That strength meant safety. That keeping my muscles tight would somehow keep age away. But I see now how easy it is for that thinking to backfire. So many seniors I meet still believe that lifting heavier or crunching harder is the key to staying young. But the truth is, our bodies aren't asking for intensity. They're asking for care. And that's when I had to ask myself something I never questioned before. Do I really need a six-pack to enjoy this chapter of life, or do I need a steady heartbeat and enough energy to take a peaceful walk with my granddaughter? These days I've changed how I train. I use resistance bands instead of weights. I move slower. I breathe intentionally through every movement. I pay attention not just to how my muscles feel, but how my heart responds. And you know what I've discovered? I'm not weaker. I'm wiser. I'm not doing less. I'm doing what matters. So if you've been pushing through your workouts without thinking about how your heart is handling it, maybe it's time to shift the focus. You don't have to stop being strong. You just need to make sure your strength isn't coming at a cost your heart can't afford. One cold morning in Asheville was the first time I ever saw my hands turn pale just 10 minutes into a walk. I remember it well. The sky was clear, but the wind had a bite to it. I had bundled up in layers, gloves, scarf, thick socks. I figured that was enough. I just wanted to keep my morning routine. So I stepped outside and walked toward the edge of town like I always did. But that day felt different. My fingers stiffened quicker than usual. My breath came in short little gasps. And after just a few blocks, I felt lightheaded, like something inside me was struggling to keep up. I turned around and made it home slowly. Sat in the chair by the window for the rest of the day. That's when I realized it wasn't just the cold on my skin that got to me. It was the cold inside me, the one I hadn't noticed until my body spoke up. Later, I learned that cold temperatures cause our blood vessels to constrict. It's the body's way of preserving heat. But for someone with aging arteries or high blood pressure like me, it also means more resistance for the heart. The Mayo Clinic notes that this added pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke. And in the summer, the opposite happens. Blood vessels expand. We sweat more, lose fluids faster. The heart races trying to cool the body, and before you know it, you're dizzy, dry, and in danger. Not from overexertion, but simply from being outside at the wrong time. There was a summer morning not long after that when I thought I was being smart. It was only 8:30. I had my sun hat, a bottle of water in my hand. I figured I'd be back before the heat really kicked in. But halfway through my usual trail, I felt the warning signs again. My shirt clung to my back. My legs got heavy. And my heart started thudding with a rhythm that didn't feel right. I sat under a tree and waited for it to pass. It did, but barely. And that was when I began to understand something I had ignored for too long. Most of us seniors think that as long as we dress properly, we're good to go. Wear a jacket in winter, a hat in summer. We think we've outsmarted the weather. But the truth is the environment has its own quiet way of challenging the heart, a way we don't feel until it's almost too late. So I started asking myself a new question. Am I listening to my body, or am I trying to outwalk the very air I'm breathing? Now I keep things simple. I exercise indoors where the temperature is steady. If I want fresh air, I go out early when the weather is mild, and I never forget to hydrate even when I'm not thirsty. I've learned to pay attention to the little whispers in my body before they turn into shouts. And I've learned that taking care of your heart doesn't just mean moving. It means choosing the right moment to move. If you're still stepping out in the cold or heat thinking it's just part of staying strong, maybe it's time to pause. Maybe the smartest thing you can do for your heart today is to listen before you move. And trust that strength sometimes begins with stillness. I once lost my balance trying to do a simple jump in a senior fitness class. Just one small hop. That's all it took. It was supposed to be a light workout, a low-impact aerobics class at the community center. Music was playing. Everyone was smiling. The instructor encouraged us to move a little faster. Just a quick jump to the side, then back again. I looked around and saw folks my age doing it with ease, so I joined in. My feet left the floor for barely a second, but when they landed, my body didn't feel right. My knees wobbled. My vision dipped, and I went down harder than I expected. I didn't break anything, but I had to spend the next 2 days mostly in bed, achy, sore, embarrassed. I kept thinking about how I'd gotten here. I was just trying to keep up. That was the moment I started to understand something I hadn't wanted to face. Quick and sudden movements challenge more than just our muscles. They disrupt blood pressure. They shake the nervous system. For older adults, these rapid motions can trigger a sudden drop or spike in blood flow and lead to dizziness or even dangerous arrhythmias. The Mayo Clinic has spoken about how balance weakens with age and how reaction time slows down. Add to that stiffening arteries and a heart that takes longer to stabilize, and even the smallest jump becomes a real test for the entire circulatory system. Still, I know why so many of us do it. We want to feel young. We want to show ourselves and maybe others that we've still got it. Somewhere deep down, we think that speed equals youth, that the faster we move, the longer we'll hold on to our strength. But what I've learned the hard way is that the body doesn't care how it looks on the outside if it's suffering quietly on the inside. And that's when I had to ask myself something simple but honest. Do I really need to jump around a room just to prove I'm strong, or can I move gently and still live fully? So now I've made peace with a slower rhythm. I practice Tai Chi under the trees when the sun is low. I stretch my arms slowly in the mornings with a soft song playing in the background. I sometimes join water classes at the indoor pool and feel the comfort of buoyancy supporting every movement. I no longer chase quickness. I chase calm. I chase balance. And I find that those things bring me a lot more peace than any fast routine ever did. If you're still chasing motion that jolts your body just to feel alive, maybe it's time to listen to what your heart and your balance are quietly asking for. The goal isn't to move faster than yesterday. It's to move wiser than before. That night I tossed and turned for hours, not because my back hurt, but because my heart was racing like it was in a speedway. It had all started with good intentions. I had just finished dinner and felt guilty for eating a second helping of mashed potatoes, so I decided to hop on the stationary bike in the garage. Nothing crazy, just a quick 30-minute ride to burn it off. At least that's what I told myself. The ride felt good, energizing even, but later that night when I laid down to sleep, something didn't feel right. My body was tired, but my mind was wide awake. My chest felt tight. My heartbeat was fast and loud in my ears. I changed positions again and again, but I couldn't drift off. The hours stretched long, and by morning I was exhausted. Not just from the lack of sleep, but from the way my heart felt like it had run a marathon without ever leaving the house. Later, I read that late-night workouts, especially those that raise your heart rate, can flood the body with adrenaline. That's the same chemical that tells your body to stay alert. For younger folks, it may wear off quickly, but for people over 60 like me, the effects linger. According to sleep researchers from Harvard and the Mayo Clinic Physical Activity, too close to bedtime can delay the body's natural wind-down process. It raises your core temperature, it keeps the nervous system active, and it interrupts the deep sleep your heart depends on to repair and recover. The funny thing is, I thought I was doing the right thing. Many seniors do. We squeeze in workouts at the end of the day when things finally quiet down. We think convenience means consistency, but we forget that timing is everything. Our bodies have rhythms, and those rhythms get more sensitive with age. What once felt like a healthy choice may now be stealing the very rest we need to stay well. And that's when I had to sit with a simple but powerful truth. Was I moving for the sake of a routine, or was I moving in a way that actually helped my body heal? These days I save my exercise for the morning, a short walk before breakfast, some gentle stretches before lunch, and when the sun starts to fall, I slow everything down. I put on calming music. I light a candle. Sometimes I just breathe for a few minutes with my eyes closed. I've learned that rest isn't the opposite of health. It's part of it, and my heart has thanked me every night since. So if you've been working out late thinking it's better than nothing, maybe it's time to ask your body what it really needs after the sun goes down. Movement is good, but timing is sacred. And giving your heart a quiet evening might just be the best exercise of all. I've shared quite a bit with you today. And as I sit here thinking back on everything we've talked about, I realize these weren't just stories about exercises or mistakes. They were pieces of my life. Moments when I thought I was doing the right thing, but ended up paying a quiet price for pushing too hard or not listening close enough. I didn't tell you all this to give advice. I told you because I don't want you to carry the same regrets I've had to learn from. Somewhere along the way, I began to understand that staying healthy at this age isn't about intensity or proving anything. It's about consistency. It's about waking up in the morning and knowing your heart is steady, your breath is calm, and your energy isn't borrowed from the day before. I used to chase routines that looked impressive. Now I choose the ones that feel kind. And that change has given me more peace than any achievement ever could. You don't have to flip your world upside down. Just start with one gentle movement today. One safe step toward a stronger heart. And if you have someone in your life who might still be pushing too hard like I once did, please send them this video. You never know. That small gesture might be what saves a heart that's quietly asking for help, but hasn't found the words to say it yet.